Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to get an introduction to Islam and its relevance in Western civilizations. All right, so very first thing is that we have some of this. This is what the standards are that we will be covering in this section. So we'll just go ahead and move along. All right, some vocabulary. So, of course, you need to know vocabulary just like any other time. All right, I'll give you guys a second to look at these, and then we will move on. All right, and one more slide. Okay, here's a general timeline of the stuff that we will be talking about as it relates to Islam, all the way from when Muhammad the Prophet is born, and just continuing up and through quite a lot of stuff, as you can see here. All right, we will begin from the beginning. All right, so the Arabian Peninsula is where Islam gets its start. So to find the Arabian Peninsula, you are going to be looking for Africa, like the northeast, so the upper right corner, so where Egypt is. The Arabian Peninsula is right next to Egypt. It's across the Red Sea. All right, so yeah, it's between there and the rest of Asia. And as you can see, it is right over here in this bottom, right in the center, right where the arrow's pointing. This whole thing, that's the Arabian Peninsula. All right, now there are a lot of well-watered valleys in the southwestern part, so that seems to be where, that's pretty much where the main two cities I would talk about, more the population is in this general area. All right. Now, the ancient Arab people, they were known as Bedouins. They were a nomadic group, typically known for herding animals such as sheep, camels, and goats. But by around the year 500 on this side of zero, a lot of them had started settling down, starting to build towns, and we get some small cities and all that starting to grow. All right. And the number one and most important one is the city of Mecca. It is still one of the number one top like Middle Eastern cities, and it's one of the absolute most important cities in the Islamic religion. All right. Now, business ties start to replace the tribal ties, so you get more integration of groups of people in these trading towns that are starting to pop up, and some of the older rituals and the laws are starting to go out of style, and they are starting to need a central form of government like to handle this. All right, now at this bottom area, religious ideas are changing. All right, so the area is starting to get influence of Judaism and Christianity at this point. And this is going to help lead to dissatisfaction with the old ways, which would be more of a polytheistic way of thinking religiously, where there's a God for this, a God for that. All right, so that is going to bring in Muhammad. He's the prophet of Islam. All right, he was born in Mecca around the year 570. We don't have an exact date, but that's the date people typically agree on, is sometime in that year. All right, so when we're talking about Muhammad, we tend to believe that he had a revelation sometime around the year 610 where he was kind of a loner when he was younger. He would go out and go camping, basically. He would hang out in caves every so often. And the story is he's out in a cave, and basically a angel appears to him and gives him the word of Allah, which is, the word of God. And after this, he starts to preach and to get a following in Mecca, and where there's only one God, and the people everywhere need to worship him and to obey this one God. All right, so kind of like a similar belief to what Jews and Christians believe, where you need to live your life in preparation for, our day of judgment. So, lead a good life. That way you're rewarded for it in the afterlife. Okay. Now, of course, this is a slow process, just like it was for Christians to start gaining a following. It was an underground following. But, the religion grows slowly but steadily. And because he becomes a rising force in the city of Mecca, there are threats against him, and he is basically forced to flee the city, or he and his family are going to be killed. So he finds refuge in a town, and just a little bit north in 622, and this is known as the first year of the Muslim calendar, with his flee from Mecca. All right, so moving on. So people really start to get going when he goes to the town Medina, which is that other city. If you look on the map, it is north of Mecca. It's approximately 200 miles, if I'm not mistaken. And here he becomes more skilled in political and religious leadership. So he is going to be a part of what's called the Medina Compact, where Muhammad lays down the foundation of what an Islamic state is. That is, the theocratic way of governing, where religious law is political law. All right. Now, he and his followers are going to make a move against Mecca, and there's little resistance because they know what kind of a person he is. There's Muslims who are living in Mecca, so they're, kind of wanting him back. And so it's not too bad of a takeover. All right. Now, these two cities, still two of the top two cities in the Islamic world. Mecca, because it is the center of their spirituality. It's the number one religious city for Muslims. And that's one thing I should cover. Islam is the name of the religion, and Muslim is the name of the practitioner, the people who worship in the religion of Islam. All right, so Mecca is the spiritual capital, and Medina is the political capital. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so the holy book of Islam is the Quran, which is basically all the religious doctrine that was gifted to Muhammad by the angel who visited him in the cave, and also with, the message that he has to divulge as well in how to practice Islam. All right. So we get the moral values of Islam, which are actually pretty similar to Judaism and Christianity. And we also get the law code written down in here, kind of like how in the Old Testament we got the Ten Commandments. So there is a law given in the Quran. It's the Sharia law. And it's, let's see. Yeah, like the Quran gives us our basics for Sharia law, which is like the common law of most Islamic states / countries now. Okay. Now, the Quran has what we call the 5 pillars of Islam, right? Number 1, confession of faith. So, being devoted to the religion, prayers, daily prayers, multiple times a day. There's almsgiving, so that would be, donating to the poor, donating your time to help out others. Fasting, that is when you go a period of time without eating. And every good Muslim makes a pilgrimage to Mecca, right? To one of the holy cities, it's a religious pilgrimage, supposed to be this great, religious experience for people to go there. Even if you're not a Muslim, it is a very eye-opening and spiritually opening experience to go to a place like Mecca. Much like if you were to go to Jerusalem and go to the Wailing Wall, which is like the last remaining part of the Temple of Solomon that is in that city, one of the oldest temples that we have of Judaism. All right. Now, let's go ahead and move on. This is just explaining the pillars a little bit more. That chart is going to be one of the most helpful things in here for describing those. Make sure that you take a look at the Islamic term and what its definition for us is. Like the Shahada is, worshiping Allah and having no other gods besides Allah. The Salah is, offering prayer, and we get it 5 times a day, just like I said before, with multiple times. The Zakat, that is, paying your alms, giving to charity. The Hajj, that is the pilgrimage and just fasting. Okay, so how is Islam related to Judaism and Christianity? All right. Well, for starters, they are the 3 major monotheistic or one God-based religions in the world. They have a religious book, just like you have the Torah for Judaism, the Bible for Christians, and we have the Quran for Muslims. All right. All 3 of those religions have the prophet Abraham. Now, a big thing there is Abraham, one of the original Jews. He had a wife who wasn't able to provide him with a son. So she actually granted him, allowed him, said, yeah, it's okay if you do this, to have a child with a slave of theirs. And then she was able to conceive when she was like 90 or something like that. And that is how we get these 2 different bloodlines, I guess you could say. So the child that he actually had with his wife is where we get dissension into Judaism. And that first child that he had with the slave woman, the bloodline there actually goes down to Muhammad and into the founding of Islam. All right. And of course, we get Christianity as a branch off from Judaism. Okay. So after that little genealogy lesson, let's get into the last 2 parts of this. So all 3 of these religions believe in heaven and hell and a final judgment to divide humanity between the 2 of where they're going to spend eternity. All right. So Jerusalem is a holy city to all 3 religions. It is the site in Islam where Muhammad supposedly ascended into heaven and, basically got a look at what it is like to help him preach about it and to get people to want to follow Islam. And the Dome of the Rock is the most famous mosque that we can really think of for Islam. And it is in Jerusalem, right where, he ascended into heaven. So, we've got, the Wailing Wall. We've got the Dome of the Rock. We have, just outside the city is the place where Christ was crucified. Very, very religiously significant city, Jerusalem. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. And we will be coming back tomorrow with the next one.